Jim, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I appreciate the invite.
No problem. How did you get into theater?
Oh, my goodness. I got into theater in 76. My wife came home from a Conroe Chorale meeting and rehearsal one day and said that the Little Theater of Conroe had been invited to be the background singers for Oklahoma.
Wow. Yeah.
This is in 76. And they were going to do a show at the high school auditorium. So did we want to do it? Yeah. Well, and that was how many years ago? 37 years ago.
Goodness, yeah.
And I've been here ever since.
Well, that's interesting. You know, when I hear little theater, there was a movement. I can't remember exactly. Was it the 30s or 40s about little theaters, and it had to do, I guess, I guess it was as opposed to Broadway, or maybe it's to indicate, was it more regional theater or that kind of stuff? But there was a whole movement of called little theaters.
Just a lot of local people got together and decided they wanted to do theater.
Exactly.
And we started out in a little old plumbing warehouse that somebody had donated to us and it was a lot of fun. We met some of the best people in town. We met a lot of really good folks, and we did theater in round, and we had 100 seats.
Wow! Yeah.
And everybody paid for your own costumes, and we all went up there and built walls out of cardboard that we went and begged cardboard out of trash cans.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
It's amazing. So, did you start first acting, or how did you start out?
I started out. I was just supposed to sing,
right,
along with 50 other people.
Sure. Yeah.
So it wasn't a big deal. But I did end up with a half a line in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
We ran up to where Curly had just gotten married, and him and his spouse were up in the house, and the line was, hello, cowboy, with a dimple on your chin.
Yeah.
And she gave hello, cowboy to one guy and dimple on your chin to me. That's the line.
Yeah. So was that your first show then? Not really, because you were just singing.
I did a little bitty thing in high school, and I did something in elementary. But as far as getting started in this kind of stuff, that was my first show.
So you've done it ever since?
Ever since. I've done something.
Wow.
I hadn't missed a year. I'm right now looking at in the neighborhood of a little over 100 shows that I've either been in or backstage for 100 shows.
How many shows were repeats? I mean, like you've done over and over again?
Only 2 or 3.
Really? So you really haven't done that many repeats?
Very few.
Oh, my goodness. So you've done all different kinds of shows, musicals, straight shows. Any favorite plays or shows that you...
Smoke on the Mountain's got to be my favorite show. It's a show about a gospel group that in this little town, and they about their family, and it's full of gospel songs. The whole show is full of gospel songs, and we did it here at the Crighton.
Right.
It was a great show. I loved that show. Met some incredible people that are still friends to this day, and that was in 97.
Wow. Yes.
So it's a lot of fun.
Wow. So what do you do when you're not doing theater?
When I'm not doing theater, generally driving up and down the street looking for headstones. And
what?
Well, I'm really interested in Texas history.
Yes.
And I get to reading books and find out that somebody that I'm reading about is buried within 50 miles of here. And, and there's no real reason for it. I just want to go look at the headstone, take a picture of it.
Right.
And so I found a lot of them around locally. In fact, there's let's see if I can remember who it is. Oh, the guy who was Sam Houston's butler. Sam Houston
had a butler?
He bought this kid, 13 years old, as a slave.
Right.
And so he brought him home to play with his kids.
Right.
And but he grew up to be sort of a butler and a wagon driver for Sam Houston. Right. And I found out he's buried in Belton. And I just want to go. I go to Fort Worth a lot because I have a lot of family up there. So we're going to go. Next time we go, we're going to go through Belton, go look at his headstone. His home is still up there. Take some pictures of it. I just like stuff like that.
Wow. So you also got active in, I guess, the flag park here?
Got real active in the flag park. Craig Campobella was the leader of that whole thing. And I met him here at the theater.
Yes.
And he told me out here one day about the concept of the flag park, and I thought that was great. So he asked me if I would get involved and would I take over the historical accuracy of the flag park, what they were doing, all the plaques that had to be written, make sure they were all historically accurate, what it was going to be. And so I started doing research, and I got involved in it, and I got up to here with it.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
And at one point, there was basically 3 of us.
Wow.
That were making all the decisions. And the fact is, we were meeting in a place that didn't have one plug-in electricity in the far back end of it in a warehouse. And so we ran the extension cord all the way up front up there, and had a what do you call them, clip-on lights.
Yes.
And we had our first basic board meeting that night where we sat, and the 3 of us pitched names for the board who we would like to see on the board.
Sure.
So that's how we picked the board. And then we had the grand opening, and and now my job now with the flag park is I keep my eye on the flags. I do flag inspections.
Yes.
And every 2 months I take them all down, look at them, see if they need replacing.
Right.
And basically every 6 months we do replace all of the flags. But if something happened between, we'd go ahead and replace it. But basically every 6 months. And I keep up with all that. Plus I keep records and keep track of each flag we fly.
Right.
Who flew it, and it flew from this day to this date, and who's the one that raised it.
Right.
And then later on we try to auction these flags off, and we have a little history to that particular flag.
Wow. So how does that work? Did the city pay for the park, or don't they pay for part of it, or how did that work?
They paid for the whole thing.
Okay.
We went out and got donations to pay for the grand opening.
Yes.
We had some real good people that were really greatly interested in this thing, and they put up $20,000 or $30,000 to pay for the entire grand opening. But the city funded all the rest of it.
Okay.
Now the county did donate us the land. It was right next door to the library, and they owned it.
Right.
It was the best place to put it, and they gave it to us.
Okay.
And the city paid for all the rest.
So that's cool. So what do you do when you're not doing all these other things? What do you do in real life? I mean, how did you make your living?
On my Social Security check.
No. I mean, before you had earned it, what did you do before? Yeah.
Before I retired, I worked at Energy for 21 years.
Yes.
And I worked in the storeroom at Energy.
Okay.
And it was a great job. I loved it. I was in charge of all of the hazardous waste stuff there, getting rid of it and seeing that it went out. And had a really, really good job. I enjoyed it. One of those jobs where you get up every morning and want to go to work.
That's great.
I really had a good time there.
Well, I hear now that when we have this, like a lot of storm damage and stuff like that, you go help out. So how did you get interested in that?
One of the guys who had also retired called me one day and asked me if I was interested in joining that team.
Right.
Where they would call you when there was a major deal outage somewhere. I said, yeah. So since then I've been to 4 major outages.
Right.
And they throw money at you. It's
really
a lot of fun, yeah.
They throw money, like for food and lodging?
Yeah, they not only pay for everything, they fly you wherever you're going.
Right.
And then pay you big bucks per hour to be up there.
Right.
And I think you're really a help to that company when you get up there.
Oh, yeah.
Because we break up into 2-man teams, and like 40 of us might go. And we've got all these teams that go out, and they'll tell us this certain area of town, we need to know what all these lines, what condition they're in.
Sure.
And so we go out there and we inspect them, and we take maps with us that show where everything the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
And we make marks and comments and whatever on this piece of paper and take back and say this needs done. This is going to take. This will take 2 trucks to go out and fix this one. This over here, 3 transformers are down, and you need a pole, and you need 2 of this, and we tell them what they need. And so this really is a lot of help to the dispatchers over there to send crews out.
Yes. So what are some of the places that you've been working on some of these emergencies? Yeah.
We went to Connecticut. It was the first one. The longest one I've been to was 9 days in Connecticut, and they had a major snowstorm and a lot of winds, and it took a whole bunch of probably almost half of Connecticut out of lights.
Wow.
And then after that, we went to Arkansas. We did one in Arkansas. We did one had to go to Boston, in the Boston area. And that was, they were expecting the biggest snowstorm ever to hit that area.
Right.
Ever.
Wow.
And so I could imagine 20 feet of snow when they said that. But what they did was they flew us in there in front of the storm.
Yes.
Because had they waited on the storm and then carried us in there, we couldn't have landed.
Right.
And then so they flew us in there early, and we set out the storm one whole day there, the snowstorm. Wow. And the night before, we parked all our cars in the parking lot. Everybody knew where your car was.
Sure.
Next morning, we got up. Nobody could find your car. They were all covered in snow out there. We're out there trying to find what was I driving? Yeah. All rent cars. You don't remember. You don't remember what it looked like.
No. You don't remember that stuff. So when you have time to do anything, I mean, you sound like you're always doing something.
I always find something to do. I've got family in Fort Worth, and which I now have a spare weekend. Yeah. We've got about 20 or 30 people in Fort Worth and family, and we go up there and spend the weekend with my sister and cousins and aunt, and just do that. And then, I'm also involved with a lady in San Antonio who's kind of made herself in charge of cleaning the 1934 headstones that were put up in Texas, the markers, historical markers that before they were metal, they used to be granite. Right. And so there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those out, and a lot of them are in real bad shape. Oh dear. So she made a list of all of them, and we're going around cleaning all of them, get them all put back like they were, put flowers in front of them. Wow. I've been involved in doing that. I've got a long list of those that still need cleaning. So. Oh, my goodness. So I stay busy. You stay busy. How did you get into directing? One time, and I'd like to see us do this again, we had a playwright contest. Yes. And we chose the top 6 of all of the plays that were introduced to us, that were given to us. The top 6, we were going to do a 10-minute excerpt from that show. Right. And they were going to pick all new directors. Sure. And at that point, I'd never even wanted to direct. Right. Because I would see the incredible job that it's a lot of work. Gene Brazier did and Joe Beiser did. It's a lot of work. And there's no way I could do stuff like that. And then they gave us these asked me if I would be interested in doing one of these 10-minute things. And me? Be a director? I can't do that. So she said, well, give it a shot. Give it a shot. So, okay. And I loved it. Dissecting it, that 10 minutes. Yeah. Well, actually, I could choose the 10 minutes out of the play. Right. And it was a real downer of a play. It was about the Holocaust. Oh, gee. But I went in and picked 2 sections that I put together. Right. And where this 2 young kids were talking about what they knew was coming in Germany. Right. And then they talked about how they knew that everything the world was going to change. And then they went to church. And those 2 sections I put together for my 10 minutes. And it turned out really good. And what I did on that church was they gave us 100% just do anything you want to do. Right. So I took that church and I diagrammed that church on a piece of round paper. And I didn't know which way I wanted my pews to face, which way I wanted my preacher to face. And so I drew a stage and I drew that church and all the pews, and I sat there and thought about it and moved that thing in a circle. Right. And all of a sudden it dawned on me while I'm doing it, this was the Jewish people in this church. Right. And the last thing they wanted was to be seen by anybody. The last thing, they knew that the Germans were out to kill them. Right. Right. And they didn't want anybody to notice them. They wouldn't speak to anybody. Right. Afraid somebody would pick them out of a crowd. Exactly, yes. So they wanted to be anonymous and hidden. Right. So I when I turned that thing with their backs to the audience, I realized that's what I wanted. They wanted to be in church, but they didn't want anybody to see them. Right, right. They didn't care about being in church. It was about the Nazis seeing them. Yeah, exactly. And I had that preacher with his head down the whole time. It was a rabbi. Right. And it just, the process of figuring out how I wanted that thing to face was so interesting to me. I really got interested in doing it.
How interesting, yeah.
And then they gave me, I did God's Favorite was my second one. Don't Drink the Water.
Don't Drink the Water.
That show, have you ever seen that show?
No,
but
it's funny. It's a funny
show.
Yeah.
It's a really a good, hilarious show. And so they asked me if I wanted to direct that, and I said yes, and I've been doing it ever since.
That's well. What shows would you like to direct that you haven't directed yet?
Oh boy.
Anything really? No burning desire? No?
I had one I was really interested in was Greater Tuna, but it's fixing to be done by somebody else.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm fixing to have to think of another one.
We'll think of something. Yeah.
Really want to do.
Oh dear.
But I'm going to do
Driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah, Driving Miss Daisy. And I'm excited about that. I think
it's a nice story.
I've been really doing the same thing with that. I've drawn out the pictures of the car and the desk and the her area, and I've sat and played with those, and so I'm really already getting into it.
Excellent. All right, I will definitely have you back again, but I'm going to ask you what we've been asking everyone else. If heaven exists, what do you want God to say when you get to the pearly gates?
Welcome.
Hey, we got a show for you if you're interested.
I'll take it.
You'll take it, Jim. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.